The season is done and dusted. It is all over for the international calendar year. How are you feeling? Are you exhausted? Do you want more, Aaron? Where are you at?
Oh, yeah, after this morning's performance, yeah, a little bit mixed, I suppose you could say. Yeah, no doubt there's been a lot of quality rugby played throughout the international season, but I suppose there's still a few questions that lots of people probably have lingering as well.
Well, before we give the All Black season the honest assessment, let's take a look at Scott Robertson and compare the season he had. First year as head coach of the All Blacks. Now, we've looked at every All Blacks head coach since the professional era started. And we've given you the percentages. So the winning percentage. Razor's winning percentage is 71% after the first 14 games. This is how every other coach stacks up. From John Hart, who's got a wonderful percentage, 93% winning record, and Jeff's mentioned to us they lost one test in the first 14. Pretty impressive. Wayne Smith, 79%, equal with John Mitchell, Sir Graham Henry and Steve Hansen, both tied on 86%. Ian Foster, another to be on 79%, and Scott Robertson only on 71%. So 4 losses out of 14 tests so far this season. So for his first year in charge, how do you assess him?
Well, he's admitted himself it's been a massive learning experience. The things that he's realised through the course of the season that weren't the way he thought they would be. He's had to make some really tough decisions. One of those was very early on in his tenure. Yeah. He's had to part ways with a coach, let's put it politely. So all of a sudden he's had to almost regroup mid-season, and then he's had to find a way to regroup Gus Croods from a couple of losses in South Africa. And he's made some steps forward. Today, though, was disappointing, the performance against Italy. It wasn't the finish he would have been looking for. It's certainly, when you look at his percentages, ultimately, as a coach of the All Blacks, that's what you'll get judged on. So when he goes into next year, I'm not sure if he has another season at 71%, that's going to be acceptable.
I think if you went to the end of year 2 and there were similar numbers to this, then I would be saying I wouldn't be as confident and watch this happen. But you just find out how tough international rugby is, what the world stage is. It's not Super Rugby, it's a different beast. But I'm feeling confident in the shifts that I've seen. Sure, that Italy game today probably wasn't what we would have loved to see. We're probably all expecting a clinical game given the top side that they selected. But for me, I feel like I keep harping on about this, the amount of change that's happened in this group. Players, 10 debutants, which we'll talk about the most since 2018, all the coaches, physios, everything. You could pretty much say there's probably a handful of staff that have stayed behind for where they were at the start of the year to where they got to. I'm feeling pretty confident about it.
Yeah, I think for me, like anyone, I think we had whether the unfair expectations of Razor coming in because of the success he had, right, with the Crusaders. That is where
the expectations came from. 7 straight titles.
Massive, and he did a fantastic job with that Crusaders tenure. But I like what you've just said, stepping up to international rugby as a coach. Obviously, he was there as a player, Razor, but it's just different in it, like anything. Some people take a little bit more time to find their feet there. I think he would have learned a lot about himself as a coach, his coaching group, just like he has about his players, possibly.
Shouldn't he be held to the same standard of all his other coaches, though, when they've got their first year in charge? And we're talking about the All Blacks here. I know the landscape is incredibly competitive right now. There are 4 or 5 teams that have set themselves apart, and we've played a few of them this year. And those have been games that we haven't come out on top. But if I look at some of the other games where they weren't convincing, those 3 test matches against England this season were not convincing. So that there isn't enough in terms of consistent performance. And some of the errors and mistakes and ill-discipline that we showed throughout the course of the year, I think was frustrating because it was almost like we're slow learning. We're not making adjustments. We started to finally finish games better than we had earlier on in the year, but that wasn't, to me, good enough when it came up against the real top teams. So I just think that he'll take responsibility. I was concerned today, just quickly, when he talked about the mindset for today's test match not being right. I'm sure he's going to own that because that's something he champions himself on, that he sets that culture. So something this week clearly didn't quite go right.
71% record. The numbers don't lie. 14 tests, 10 wins, 4 losses. So what sort of rating do you give the All Blacks this season?
Oh, I'm sticking with what I feel it's good, and it's a B+ to me. Feels like context, everything, the situation we've been in, where we've come to where we're at, B+ sounds good to me.
Why a B+? Give us the context around it. What could they have done to get into the A's?
Oh, I mean, obviously, you win a couple more games. I suppose Goldie's broken down. Some of them weren't convincing, but it's not like we've played 2 tests over in South Africa, probably the toughest place to play in the world, especially right now, both within 5 points, 1 scoring game. You beat 2 big, massive ticks. All right? The amount of change that happened, and I've talked about Graham Henry, Steve Hansen, Ian Foster, all succession plans. Golden time of New Zealand rugby from 2011 to, the end of Steve Hansen's reign, and Ian Foster had his growing pains. So I don't know. I feel like it's hard to judge this with 1 season, but it's off what Cruds is saying. The expectation of this All Black side, this nation, what he's done with Crusaders, it's so high. So I'm trying to look with rose-tinted lenses and be positive about this because, hey...
And you're still available for selection.
Yeah.
I know, and you are balanced. I know you're not looking at that in any way, shape or form.
So you're a B+. Aaron, you are a B. How'd you get there?
Yeah, I probably saw, I think I said it the other night, enough, progression. Any progression is good progression. It probably would have got up to a B+ if they had performed well in this morning's game. I was possibly toying with a B- after this morning's game, but I ended up just sticking straight down the middle and going with a B. And yeah, I like what has been said already with Jeff and Gus. Like, the games we lost, we probably could have won, I think. But then some of the games that we did win, we were not convincing. And that's probably why, for me, there's still a few questions around a few areas.
Woulda, shoulda, coulda.
Your expectations are a little bit higher than these two, and I guess that's because at the start of the international season, the breakdown crew, the regulars sat down, yourself and JK both said that for you, 12 out of the 14 tests is the standard that they need to meet, and they didn't meet those 12 tests. Is that how you got to your B-?
If they'd beaten Argentina and done that, that was a concerning loss to me. If they'd been more convincing against England, because I accept what you're saying around South Africa and France. Clearly for me, the 2 teams, we got Italy at a good time. They hadn't played a warm-up game, but that was a dominant performance. But I just sort of look at it and I'm optimistic in the future. Don't get me wrong. I really like some of the talent we've unearthed, some of the opportunity we've given them. But I felt across the board there was enough players who had been through enough and experienced enough in that group in pivotal and key positions that we were still well and truly capable of winning these test matches, and we had the potential and ability to do that. And those guys are good enough. So my question was, why couldn't we once again get over the hump? Because that's what happened last year. You talk about looking at a season, quite often you remember for the last game of the year. They're remembered in 2023 for the last game of the year. People this morning, tonight, will look at this season and go, you know what, didn't finish very well. Maybe that's indicative of where they're at right now.
Are we discrediting where World Rugby is at the moment? Like, we talk like that was a concerning loss to Argentina. Who else did Argentina beat this year?
Had a good year.
These are teams where in the past you've probably guaranteed or expected a win from the All Blacks, but World Rugby has come a long way. It's more competitive than ever, what I believe. These teams that haven't performed as well as they have in the past, when I saw Argentina, what they did, All Blacks, Wallabies, South Africa, they're legit. They're not a team that you can just brush past and expect. The same as Italy, although it wasn't as convincing, they've still come a long way from where they were, Jeff. You can't deny.
Argentina at home in Wellington, 12-point lead with 20 minutes to go. In what world do we ever expect we would lose that Test match? Look, I understand what you're saying.
Probably 5 or 6 years ago, when Argentina are not the beast they are today. It's a different beast today.
Yeah.
Teams have grown. The world's getting better. Newsflash. Hello.
You're becoming a different beast.
You know what? I've had it. I'm throwing all this paper out. I'm going.
It's about time I got to you. It's about time I got to you.
All right.
Perfect.
You don't got me. I'm unravelable.
You can swap seats.
I'm unravelable.
You can swap seats.
I'll look you in the eye.
Yeah, here you go.
All I'm saying is the world is better. The expectation of the All Blacks is up here, but there's going to be challenges, and if it's not better, what is rugby?
You two are just going to have to hold your tongue for a moment, because I've been getting told to move on for the last 5 minutes in my ears.
This is my last show, so I'm sort of just throwing and going.
Punches.
Haymakers.
Here's what's coming up for the All Blacks next season. So Razor's second year in charge of the All Blacks. Home tests against France. That'll be a brilliant series in July. 2 test matches against South Africa. How good that the Springboks, the back-to-back world champions, are coming to our powerhouse. A test here against Australia, a test in Australia against the Wallabies as well. A couple of away matches against Argentina. That'll be a good tour for the boys. And then the end of year tour is 4 straight test matches starting in that old place, Chicago against Ireland, Scotland, England and Wales. So the grand slam for the All Blacks to finish the season. Just before we move on, let's talk about these two legends. Aaron, you've played with them both, TJ Perenara and Sam Cane. We saw the beautiful moments that they had in game when one came off, one came on, and then afterwards the tributes that were coming for them as well. In your words, what legacy do these two players leave?
Oh, it's thrown around a lot, but for me it's mana, you know, and Gus and I have both had the privilege of playing with both these two men, and it's probably, you are invested when you know them on a personal level as well, and that's truly, you know, I guess my privilege to say that, and just seeing the way they've gone about their whole careers, both on and off the field, the things that they've had to face, and I guess understanding the people that they are. Yeah, for me it's been a real privilege, and to see them probably rewarded, I suppose, in a way of getting to play their last test match, you know, and I will give credit to Razor and the coaching group too, because, you know, he possibly could not have picked them for various reasons, but I think the coaching group, the team, the environment wanted these guys to go out probably the way that they deserve to.
And to be fair, the All Blacks needed both of them this year. They have given a significant amount in their final years. They will not be involved in the All Blacks moving forward, though. Both will be overseas in Japan.
Hold on, Scott Robertson today has talked about the fact he's going to the board with eligibility questions. He wants a discussion open, so there's no reason, if he can convince them, there's clearly some guys overseas that he wants, if he can select them. And on Sam Cane's form in 2024, what if we needed him next year? I'm just saying, this is not me talking.
Is
Scott
this
Robertson.
71% record talking? Because if he had a better record in the first 14 tests, would he be asking for players to come back from overseas?
Look, there was a lot of things to unpack in the comments that he said about he's not taking a blanket rule. He wants the conversation, not the first time he said it.
He's been saying it for 12 months.
He wouldn't say that unless he thinks he might need someone. You wouldn't have that conversation. He's just looking around going, maybe I could do with that. How do I get myself in that position? Is Sam Cane the guy that I might need in 2025 at the age of, what, 33 years old?
I mean, we know who it is, right? He wants Richie Mo'unga. He's the guy.
I think he wants flexibility. He wants the option like other teams around the world have. Because he knows the one team at the moment who's the biggest threat, the best team in the world is who? It's South Africa. And they've got players playing everywhere. They've got 5 first fives, South Africa. 5!